So I don't know how much longer this phone is going to work. As soon as I logged on the internet, my land, the manager of HUD here in the Bloomington Housing Authority, overall manager, had been sending his a pedophile creep that is involved with my stepdad and the Big Lick Monster and all of that sort of stuff. And I call my stepdad out of habit, but that's not what he is. And they got, the information necessary for my phone from the box, and because I didn't throw it away, I put it in the closet. And so when I go online, my phone starts crashing. And so we're gonna try to talk about some things and see how far this goes. When my grandfather was in his 20s, that's when my Uncle Sonny was born. And during that time, he was still a young man. He had brought his mother into his harem as just a general woman in the harem. And she had set herself up as the queen of the harem. And she was doing pre-screening of all of his offspring. She would, of course, when he would go into the harem, all the young children under the age of 7 would come gather around him and play with him until he was tired of it, and then they would be taken away and he'd play with the women. And he was being watched by his mother and some of her cronies to see how he interacted with the children. And he knew that, but the children that he had shown favor to were never brought to him for acknowledgement. And they were going through another screening to see if they would obey her before they obeyed him, and also to see what their opium tolerance was like. And if they passed her muster, then they were brought to him. So that was discovered, and he cast her out. And when he cast her out, she had worked with some of her cronies to conserve some of his sperm, and she made a baby of her son, and that is my father. So my Uncle Sonny was one of the kids that didn't make the cut of the mother, but the father had been unable to speak on the issue. And he had known himself to be different. He had provided certain things for his kids. And that was, I think he had noticed something, so he started providing some education and some structure to his kids. And that got them further in conflict with the mother. It just gave her more opportunities to observe their loyalty to her. And so my Uncle Sonny was loyal to his father, and was sent to the souk, and was not before he was made addicted, and so he went through withdrawal in the souk as a child, and then he was brought to the United States. He was handed off to the black people around here who said, "This isn't an ordinary Negro." And he said, "Well, do what you always do with the abnormal Negroes. I mean, he's not even going to be crazy like an ordinary Negro." And then Hoagie Carmichael teaches him how to do musical transcription, and teaches him the basic keys on the piano. And then he writes Stardust. And he also, there was an incident in which a black baby was passed around and smacked against a tree and stuff like that, and given back to the mother dead by some white people. And that was right before my grandmother was born. My great-grandmother, this was her first child that they would not take away automatically. So she was at whatever age at that time. She was born in like 1903. So I would say that my grandmother was born in 1919, but wasn't documented born until 1929. They said her birth date was 1929, but it was actually 1919. So she lost 10 years of her life. She stayed small for a long time. And this practice of giving people the extracts of the pituitary glands of cadavers goes back a very long time. And So she eventually becomes a male-looking person of who is 5'11", and but so she has her first child by my uncle. When that happens, that was done as a deal. By that was around the time my husband, my great uncle, was running around this place, gave him an offer saying that I'll get you out of this place and make a baby with the baby that you've been taking care of. And so he kind of feels bad about that his whole life, you know. He goes on he starts an orchestra, he becomes a very famous musician in his area, gets into deep cut jazz, is like one of the founders of some of the spiritual jazz stuff. They come to him and say that they know where he's from, the Catholics do, and that they could put him back where he's supposed to be. But he's got to cooperate with them. So they make him Sultan Qaboos, which they're all Sultan Qaboos, I think, in Oman, aren't they? That's when he starts running around with my great uncle, my husband, my guru. So he's Sultan Qaboos. They've known each other from before. He recognizes him when he sees him running around as Prince Fahd. And they come up and they're working for MI6 or whatever it is, Her Majesty's Secret Service, whatever they call it back in those days. And to pay off the East Indian Company debt. Well, see, they want Uncle Sonny to set up Oman so that they can supply opium to a wider range of polite people who aren't working through my great-grandmother. And so he doesn't want to have to do that, but you know, my great uncle sent to work with him, so Sultan Qaboos starts running around with Shake Your Booty. And that's when Shake Your Booty is born. And so they're running around doing all kinds of stuff like that. And if you ever listen to like Ethiopics, and then you try to listen to the deep cut jazz and stuff like that, it's like people without the right genetics are trying to imitate North African and Arabian music. Yeah. It really is. And then they're doing it their own way, and then they're playing back and forth. The people, traditional musicians of the region, are then trying to do the composition structure of modern jazz, and while still playing the same riffs. And so you hear all kinds of things like this. And so he was influenced by that. And you wonder where he got that influence. And eventually, he has a few children before this point and none after this point. And one of those children is Jeff Fort. You know, don't say his given name. Don't say his government name. And he has had a conversation with his father that he is not an ordinary Negro, and he is not to put these genes in ordinary Negroes. He's supposed to take measures. Well, he's got a bunch of girls. He's got a harem around him. Johnny's one of them. And she steps out on him and gets pregnant, and he overhears her talking about, it's early in the stage. And so he calls his dad and said, I want to tell you, I did not do this. And he said, well, let's get together on this. So he brings Johnny to Oman, and Sultan Qaboos neither makes her a wife, nor a slave, nor a concubine, nor anything else, but enjoys her company, and then says whatever's in her womb is his, and makes him the next Sultan Qaboos, who we've been calling Abdul Wahid. Because that's what he said his name was when he was in my class when I was in grad school. And I don't know if he was enrolled or not. He was just there. I mean, what's the point of buying anything, paying anything, owning anything? Anybody could take anybody for anything. But see, when there are ceremonies before your birth, before your conception, it changes how people are thinking. Those little bitty changes in your thought hormones, your body posture, your channels and stuff like that influence how these teeny tiny things, microscopic things you can't even see, come together to make something as big as me. And it's like if I threw a snowball at you right now, it would be a snowball. But if I ran up at the top of a mountain and threw a snowball at you from there, it would wipe out this town. See? So that's throwing a. So you go up the mountain, you make some statements, and then when it all comes downhill, it pops up like a ship in a bottle rather than garbage dump.